Nei tēnei ata, a hapa he turu aku ne kupu kānui tēmihi, a kānui tēmihi kānui te haria tōku ngā aku kei kuna ia tāta. A he mihi tēnei ki koitau, ngai kai kauni hira o te matau a Māui, nau mai haramai, nau tutunu i o tēnei o a tātou nei whare. He mihi tēnei ki a koe te tiamane, te tunu whakarai, nau mai hoki mai, nau mai hoki mai. Firstly, on behalf of His Worship the Mayor, elected members of Warra District Council, members of our community, we welcome you warmly, elected members of the Hawke Regional Council, to our chambers. He kaipaparanga tina kei mo ia koita. No te me hei a pōpō te huri tau e rua o Kāpireira. Hakoa, kai maha o koita nei kōrero, kei kona he wero ia koita, kia kaha, kia mātāra, kia mana wāru. It's appropriate that you meet here on this day, the anniversary of Gabriel. We understand that the discussions that you have today weigh heavy on your shoulders, and on behalf of our community, we wish you all the best in this piece. Mai wanga mano manaki chaki o koita. Tēnā koita, tēnā koita, tēnā koita. We welcome you once, we welcome you twice, we welcome you 3 times. Tēnā koita. Madam Chair, I understand you have a karakia in front of you to begin your meeting. Mā koe whatu tēnā koe kia.
Tēnā koe. Tēnā koe te whanaunga. Mō tō mihi kia mātou te kaunihira nei. Kei roto i tēnei whare o te kaunihira. He mihi nunui ki a koe, Craig, te koro matua o tēnei hapori. Me ngā mana whenua hapori kua tai mai nei mō tēnei hui tino whakahirahira. Nā reira i rongi i tērā tātou. Me karakia tātou, kei mua i a tātou ngā kupu. Ai, me inui. Tūtawa mai i runga, tūtawa mai i raro, tūtawa mai i roto, tūtawa mai i waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora. A very warm welcome to you all. It's pertinent that we're here in Te Wairoa today, given the 2-year anniversary and the impact that this community suffered from the cyclone. I also want to reflect on the event of Cyclone Bowler that many of you in this room would have had to endure and recover from also. Notwithstanding that, our whānau, my whānau, that were involved in both those events, which is why today is so important to talk about our future together for flood protection in Te Wairoa that has never been afforded in the past. On that koutou, I'd like to open up with, unfortunately, housekeeping whānau, so just endure. And if I've got this wrong, Craig, can you just intervene? Or do you want to do the housekeeping? Okay. This meeting is being live streamed on Council's Facebook page and recorded for viewing at a later date on our YouTube channel. In the event of an earthquake, drop cover and hold. If the shaking is long or strong, when shaking subsides, leave the building through the nearest exit and proceed immediately outside. Evacuation. If there's an emergency, immediately evacuate the building through the nearest exit and proceed to the assembly area at the Rose Garden at Coronation Square. Toilets are located down the hallway outside the chamber entrance. Ka pai. I call for apologies. Leanne, do we have any?
We have an apology from Councillor Neil Curtin.
Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder to accept that apology? Thank you, Councillor Sophie and Councillor Zan. Thank you. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you. Any conflict of interest declarations in today's items? There are none. There are no public forum speakers, so we move on to our decision item, our only item which is most important today. So we'll hand over to you, Nick, our CE, to take us through today's paper and presentation.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Nick Pete tōku ingoa. My name's Nick Pete, I'm the CE at the Regional Council. Thank you, Chair. Members, there is a significant paper in front of you today as Kitea said in his introduction to welcoming us into the room, we are virtually now at 2 years since Cyclone Gabrielle wrought its devastation across the region, and particularly in this part of the Rohi to the area around North Clyde and parts of Frasertown. In 18 months since funding was secured through negotiation with the Crown of $70 million to contribute to or to pay for flood protection for North Clyde, there's been a pretty intensive process underway, and could I just personally thank the tripartite partners who we've been working with, Wairoa District Council, Tato Tato o Te Wairoa, and more recently the Crown Manager. And that project process, which officers will take you through shortly, has really taken everybody on a journey of looking at a really long list of options for how you might construct flood mitigation for the North Clyde part of Wairoa. It's got it down to the point of the paper that you see in front of you. And I'd be the first to acknowledge that for all of the people who've been attached to that process, landowners, mana whenua, interested communities across Wairoa, it's a difficult and emotional journey, and to get to this point has required not only a lot of thinking and technical work, but a lot of tears and heart searching and heartache along the way. So again, from all of those involved in the project, a huge thank you to all of those people who've contributed so much and will no doubt contribute a lot as the project goes on. Essentially, the paper in front of you today is a milestone in terms of identifying a preferred option for flood protection or flood mitigation for the North Clyde part of Wairoa. But it is a step in a longer journey, and you will see as we go through the presentation and hear from the tripartite partners that there's a lot more work to do post this point. And indeed, there'll be a considerable amount of work to do to look at how this option might be further refined and things done around its alignment, things done around its profile to continue to minimise the impact of the land, of the alignment on communities, and particularly on landowners who are directly affected. So it is a step in a process rather than the end of the process. You will also know that we, under our funding arrangement with the Crown, need to be going back to the Crown to seek approval of a business case in early March this year. And this is an important step in being able to build that business case and look to unlock that $70 million worth of Crown funding. And whilst it's an incredibly generous offer from the Crown when the negotiations occurred, we're also really conscious that as time goes past, not only does the uncertainty remain for the community, but we need to make sure we make the best use of that $70 million that's available for Wairoa. And obviously, as time passes, the relative value of that money drops. I just also note, Chair, before I hand over to Andrew Casely to take you through a short presentation, that this isn't the only flood mitigation work going on in Wairoa, and clearly the community here equally has concerns around the management of the bar and flooding that's previously occurred in Korpu Road, and also the wider catchment and what we might need to be doing working in the wider catchment to minimise erosion, sediment loss, and the reasons that we see potentially increased flooding as that water heads down to Wairoa. So work is underway on all three of those things. We have done a summary of all the work going on in the catchment and really keen to keep working with the tripartite partners on that. There's some early stage engineering works going on around potential solutions for the bar and Korpu Road. So I just think important to put this important work for North Clyde in context, that it's only one part of the wider solution for Wairoa. And again, having that multifaceted solution in place, I think, will be critical, given the or the challenges that we all face as we see more intense weather events as a result of a changing climate. So that's my introduction, Chair. Happy to stop there or hand over to Andrew Casely to take you through a short presentation.
I think we'll head on to Andrew's presentation. Thank you.
Great. Kia ora koutou. My name is Andrew Casey. I'm the Program Director for the North Island Weather Event suite of projects that the Regional Council has had funded by the Crown. There are 11 in total, of which Wairoa is our largest. And if I just very briefly reflect back on my time as Chief Executive of the Regional Council from 1993 to 2007, we considered at that time the exposure that Wairoa as a township had to ongoing flooding. And of course, the memory of Cyclone Boulder in 1988 was fresh in people's minds. And of course, it took out the State Highway Bridge and caused other damage as well. And our problem was we couldn't find an affordable solution and approach to the challenge that we had here. And so to now have the opportunity to utilise the $70 million of Crown funding towards a flood mitigation project is, in my mind, a huge challenge in itself, but also a magnificent opportunity to do something for Wairoa that we just haven't been able to do to date. We know it is fraught with challenges, and in the discussions that I've been party to in workshops and with the tripartite meeting a few weeks ago, the deep emotion and feeling that exists around the impact around land access. And I just want people to know how deeply we feel that as well, and that it will be at the forefront of everything we do in this project. And I very much mean that as the Program Director for it. I think it's fundamental. Right, enough of my little emotion. Let's get into it. I know that you all, as councillors, would have read the paper, so I don't want to rehash it page to page, but there are a few things that I do want to highlight and just bring to your attention in addition to what you've seen in that 16 pages. I apologise for the length, but Steve and I and Nick and Chris just couldn't get it any shorter, so I hope you'll forgive us. The first thing I want to comment about is the community and stakeholder engagement. And I'd probably open by saying you can never do enough in this space. And I'm sure everybody knows that with whatever they've done on whatever sort of initiative requires community engagement. But the support and buy-in of the community is fundamentally important for us in leading and delivering this project, and we will continue to do everything we can to bring the community along with what we're trying to do. I'd love to think we'd have 100% support. I'm probably old enough and grey enough to know that that's a bit naive, but we'll do our very best to bring people with us as this project proceeds. So what have we done to date? The tripartite arrangement in my short time with the project, I think, has been absolutely invaluable and will continue to be invaluable. I've observed very robust discussions that have gone on just in the few forums that I've been part of, which I think is incredibly healthy and that will help us deliver a more successful project than we would otherwise. Also, the stakeholder group that's been part and parcel of this journey as well has been equally beneficial. That's broadened the involvement in terms of rural landowners, people who, from the rural setting, the criticality of the Wairoa District Council, Mayor Little being involved as well, and the value that that's brought to the project to date has been critical and will continue to be. Lawrence, your appointment as Crown Manager, and we go back a few years now in terms of our relationship, and there wouldn't be a day goes by that we're not in contact with one another about the issues that we're trying to weave our way through, the working together, the buy-in of the Crown as the funder for this project, and their confidence in where we're going and what we're doing as well, and I hope that we're building on that every day. But most critically is that direct engagement with impacted landowners. And we got a bit of a G up at the tripartite meeting a few weeks ago about that we haven't done enough yet. And we know we haven't done enough yet. We need to do more. And you would have seen in the body of the paper the criticality of that more than anything in terms of what we've still got to do to be able to stand this project up. And as I said in my opening remarks, that is fundamentally important, and I cannot emphasise that point enough as we go forward with this project. The wider community we also need to bring along, as we've said. We've had some public meetings. We've had, through Hannah and the initiatives of others, stood up a really effective public website, and we will continue to advise the community as we progress. The reality is that we're going to have to engage the Māori Land Court and Māori trustee, but that, in my mind, is a positive, and we're already in contact with them and working out how we can work together to best effect across the board there. I've mentioned the importance of the Crown. Graham Mitchell is the head of the National Infrastructure Funding and Finance entity that used to be the Crown Infrastructure Partners, is probably in weekly contact with Lawrence and myself about the progress of the project. Are we on target to submit our project delivery plan by the 7th of March, etc.? And I think, as I said, that relationship's building all the time. And finally, of course, the council itself has committed to this project through the long-term plan and had the consultation that revolves around that, albeit this is now the specifics of what's being considered. So that's just an outline for you around the community and stakeholder engagement. The next one is just a brief comment, and for some of you, you're very familiar with this, with others you may not be, which is just what option C is proposing. It is a spillway that will take a part of the flow from the Wairoa River when it starts to spill out of its banks and direct it in what has been considered the safest and most sensible route possible. And you'll see there outlined on the map where that's proposed to be. It entails stock banks of just over 1 kilometre long. It's about 170 metres wide, so it's a substantial width in terms of a floodway, but it's designed to take, and if Andrew Salisbury was in the, well, yes, he is in the room, he'll tell me if I've got this wrong, about 800 cubics, I think, Andrew, in that order. And so, you know, a decent sizable flow. And just to give you some idea of what that volume of water might look like, I understand that that's what was flowing through the between the Turaikuri and the Narara rivers when they are at the height of their Cyclone Gabriel breaches. So it is a substantial flow that you'll be taking out of the river and directing down that spillway. There'll be secondary flood banks required as well, and particularly on the town side, and you'll see that just indicated there in red at the bottom. That will go through the Wairoa District Council public park area there and into some of the residential properties adjoining the river. And the other thing too that's just important to note, it's still very relevant obviously for the property owners concerned, is there are about 3 houses, I think it's Steve, required to be lifted in the Frasertown area as part of the initiatives themselves. So that's just an outline for you of the works and a reminder for those who are already familiar with it. The key project factors that we've had to consider, the most critical, no, I'm going to back the bus up on that, an important one is to make sure that what we actually do design is going to achieve what we want it to achieve. And that is to provide the level of service protection, which is 1 in a 100-year flood event with appropriate freeboard to convey the flow that I've outlined, so that we can protect those properties from that scale of an event in North Clyde that are currently categorised as 2C, with the objective, of course, of moving them to Category 1, whereby we hope that it will be much easier to secure insurance. Hopefully it'll be easier to have insurance at a more affordable level, etc. That is, from the Crown's perspective, one of the, if not the most critical objective of the $70 million that they've committed. The cultural impact assessment we've had completed, and there are still things that we need to factor into the final project parts and components to make sure that we're addressing as many, if not all, of the issues raised in that report itself. And in the letter from Tato Tato that Chair Lewis might be commenting on, is highlighted that point, that we still need to do that. It is recognised that we still need to do that. The third one, we've got to make sure this fits the budget, because the exposure of the council is to any cost over and above the $70 million. So naturally, from your concern and the ratepayers of Hawke's Bay, we want to deliver a project that does fit within that budget while maximising the benefit that we can get from the spend that's intended. Risks. Every project has risks. We don't know yet what a construction price might deliver to us. And of course, the biggest one of all is land access. It's been a recognised issue from the beginning, and for almost every project, that's a risk in itself. There's a very clear, defined process around public works required on private land, of whatever status that might define itself as, that needs to be followed, and absolutely will be followed with the utmost empathy and understanding of people who are potentially impacted or will be directly impacted by the land access required to deliver the project. I frequently put myself in the shoes of people in situations like this and think, well, how would I like to be treated? What would my reaction and response be? And I think for all of us who own land, who have lived on land for a period of time, let alone the whenua Māori owners who have had that association with their land for, in many instances, centuries, how deep that feeling is. And again, I just want to reiterate the awareness of that and the importance of that. And I've mentioned there that the objective is, of course, to move those properties from their 2C category to 1. And we are poised to do that with one of our projects in the suite of 11 that we've got. And I'm looking at the chair here because we hope that Waiheke will be the first area where we are able to achieve that. And for us, that's a really exciting moment that we are doing what we've set out to do around creating greater certainty and confidence around those people who are currently impacted by that land categorisation. Next slide, please. As I said, we're only part with it. The chair has said, the CE has said, we are only part way through the journey. Outlined there is some of the critical steps from here on. Today's meeting, of course, we have to finalise a project delivery plan. It's a funding requirement of the Crown that applies to every other project that we're dealing with. And that goes right through to the Minister of Finance for her sign-off. And you may think, well, why are you quite so pressed for time around this? It's because the Minister of Finance will go into a budget 2025 lockout period and mean that we may not be able to get her focus on this, or her officials won't, until perhaps July if we don't get it through to her. And our plan, and I've spoken extensively to both Lawrence and Nick about this, is that we create as much flexibility for ourselves in that PDP so that as the project evolves with exactly what we end up doing, that the project delivery plan allows that. So that's what our objective is with that. And as you can see there, it goes through quite a review process. As you can imagine, I mean, 70 million isn't probably a huge amount in the context of the Crown's annual spend, but nevertheless, there is a high level of scrutiny from the Crown's perspective about how well this funding will be deployed and the difference that it's intended to make, and I'm sure that as taxpayers we're all pleased to hear that as well. Next slide, please. Nick has made mention of this as just some of the other things that the council is doing in addition to standing this project up and delivering it. The first is, of course, with what happened in June last year, is the ongoing management of the Wairoa River Bar, and I know that the team were very active over the Christmas period as we had the rainfall event here in Wairoa again, about making sure that the more recent steps put in place to manage the bar were happening, that there were strong lines of communication back to the Wairoa Council itself and the community obviously as well. The other one is the proposal to perhaps better control the river mouth with an option of putting in place a groin down there. Not an easy exercise to do in a very active coastal environment, but something that could be a potential solution to the problems that periodically arise around the criticality of that river bar and the discharge from the river itself. And the Crown Manager, Lawrence, has been doing a lot of work with some of his advisors as to what a feasible proposal could be. We're assisting with that, and we could be poised to actually do our own internal assessment of what his advisors think could be a viable option for that to proceed. And I know, and he reminds me almost daily of this, that if we are able to stand this project up, and we're all hoping we can, is that we can bring it in under budget sufficiently enough that it may offer some financing flexibility for us to tackle some of the things on this list. There are no guarantees around that, but that is certainly what our objective will be once we're up and going. The other one is that there's work going on in Kopu Road and Ngāmutu around the flooding that both occurred in June and is an ongoing risk to the communities in those areas. I know that Wairau District is doing their own modelling around their internal stormwater network, but also just what could be involved to protect those areas, the affordability of that, the practicality of that. And there will be a session, I think, in the next couple of weeks or something, Lawrence, when we'll be updating the community about the progress being made on that. The other one, and it's again been mentioned, and again Tātou have mentioned it in their letter to Council, that is part of the meeting papers, is the importance of considering the broader Wairau and Wairau River catchments and what can be done there to actually retain water before it creates a problem in the river, and around land use, riparian plantings or whatever else that may entail. And I know that Council has got that as part of their land management program, that's the right terminology to use, and also what could be done to even accelerate the criticality of that as a holistic solution to the flooding risk that Wairau faces. The other one that I thought was important to just highlight to you all as well, one of our 11 projects is the upgrade of the Council's telemetry system, and that is to create greater resilience. There were many sites that were wiped out in Gabriel, which basically meant the Council was running blind in terms of what was actually happening around rainfall and river levels. And the criticality of those 2 points of data, information and insight is to create sufficient time and warnings to communities that are exposed by heavy rainfall events and high river levels. And there are 8 telemetry sites within the catchment here that are being upgraded as part of this program. 3 of them are completed and 3 are in progress. And I think they are some of the first ones that are being dealt with in terms of the program that we've got, because of the criticality to Wairau Township around that early warning and insight into what rainfall is occurring and the impact on river levels themselves. Final slide, and I think that might be my lot, and over to you. But obviously, if there are any questions that come up during your deliberations, I or other members of the team, Chris Dolly, Steve Favish, Andrew Salisbury are happy to contribute. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew. Kia ora. I'd prefer councillors, if you're agreeable, to then move on with other speakers and leave questions and clarification for after all the speakers. Okay. Thank you. I just want to invite up now Leon, not Lewis. Yep. Leon, actually, Mia Little, thank you. Mia Little, invite you as a tripartite partner alongside Tātou. We have Leon here with us. And after Leon, actually, I'd like to hear from those closest to the engagement, to the people who this mostly affects. So I'll ask you, Denise, to share a few words and then end with you, Lawrence, okay, to wrap up as the project lead Crown Manager for this. Thank you. Thank you. Craig, wherever you feel comfortable, you can come and sit here. You can sit here. Yep, come and sit here.
The only other person that's stolen my seat in this room, Nick, is Lawrence.
I paid a small rent before I...
What was that?
I paid a small rent, Your Worship.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ki te rangatira. Anyway, tēnā koe.
Craig.
Hey, look, I'd just firstly like to acknowledge the tripartite partners. You know, it's been a long journey, Leon, and anyway, and all of the governance team on that journey. You know, it's been a hard one and it's been a long one. And I'd like to acknowledge HBRC for coming up here today. I've just realised I've probably missed a great opportunity. I could have put a couple of late items in to get ratified quickly before this one, but never mind, I've missed that. So welcome no mai haere mai to you have a big decision ahead of you today, and it's huge, and I really feel for you. And I'd like to, thank you for coming up here to make that decision here in Wairoa, pretty much on the 2 years since the cyclone. Look, I'd like to acknowledge you, Lawrence, the Crown Manager. It's been a hard journey. You've really done well. It hasn't been easy for you. It's been, you're part of this community now, and you always will be. But it's been hard. Look, I'd like to particularly acknowledge Denise and Kiria. They were the guys that knocked on the doors of people, the mana whenua, the property owners, the landowners, the homeowners. It wasn't an easy job. You had to. It was heartbreaking for you, Denise, and Kiria. I think he's watching from afar somewhere, and and that's just what we do here. Look, and I'd also like to, really mention the mana whenua, that they're the land, property and house homeowners, business owners. You've been at the forefront of our journey, of our discussions, right from the day one, right back to August, I think, 2023, when we had our first meeting across the road. It's been a big journey, and I understand a lot of you have had so much on your plate to, rebuilding your homes, your lives, but, you will always be at the forefront. He aha, te mea nui, maku kia atua, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It's always the people, the people, the people. That is what we do, and that is what we'll always do. The decision on the land access is yours, the people, the owners. It always has been yours. But today is about coming up with a proposal. So actually, you can make a decision, because otherwise we'll just go round and round in circles if we don't have something in front of us. Flood mitigation is the most significant project the Wairoa community has seen in decades. It's huge. It's taking everybody's time up, and but it's so important. And look, we all know there isn't a magic silver bullet, but that will stop all flooding. But we need to reduce the flood risk. I used to say to my kids, growing up, reach for the stars, don't look at your feet, and actually if you hit the moon, you've done pretty bloody well. And I think that's what we're here today. We won't get the silver bullet, but we will get something out of it, and we must. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. Wairoa has never had any type of flood protection for as long as records have been kept and beyond. Whilst we support the Crown Manager and your recommendation today of 1C, I know you will do that, Lawrence. You won't stop listening to the community, to the mana whenua. And I know there'll be options. We'll be tweaking probably as we go, and it's just what we do. But that's what we have to do. This project isn't about a flash project. It's about necessity. It's about the Wairoa people, particularly the North Clyde residents, so they can be protected, so this will never happen again. Wairoa is our home, and we need to do everything we can so we never have to go through another flooding disaster that has devastated so many families, and quite a few of you people are in this room today. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, and you've got our letter as well.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
We have
so,
your letter.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Kia ora. Thank you. Invite up Leon. Kia ora, Leon.
Kia ora no tātou, ko wai au, ko Leon Soames Tukuinga, chairmana o Tata Te Wairoa Trust. First of all, I'd just like to, acknowledge everyone in the room. Today is a momentous occasion to be able to reach this point, decision making, also the work that's gone into getting to this point. It has been a lot of hours, done by a lot of people, some paid, unpaid, but the work that people have done it in a manner of professionalism, by supporting one another through this journey. So that's key. I guess the other acknowledgement is today's decision will directly impact on some of our whānau, and we need to acknowledge and have those minds, their thoughts in the front of our mind. I guess as the only, dissenting party to the recommendations that have been put forward, Tātou Tata Te Wairo do not support option 1C as stipulated in the paper that's been presented to councillors. We believe that we as an entity cannot make decisions on whānau whenua. It's up to the whenua. Hearing today about engagement, wanting to work through that process, it's all good and good to hear, but will it eventuate? Will we get to a point we don't have confidence in sometimes the process? We've always been mindful of Crown processes through ourselves, through our entities' establishment, through treaty settlements. We've always been promised things in the past, and those promises have always never been delivered. So you can see our scepticism about promises, and particularly for these whānau on the whenua here. They have built up memories, and those memories on that whenua were about to be extinguished. About the decision you're about to make, they will no longer be able to make those memories on that whenua. Land utilisation of that whenua will be changing with the decision that will be made today. So these are big decisions for those whānau. They're going to impact them quite significantly. We're extinguishing the future that they've had with that whenua. So it's a big decision. I don't envy you guys making that decision, but from our perspective, we're there to support whānau. We've always been there to support the whānau, to help them make that decision. It's their right to make that decision and not for us to make it for them. And also regarding, Taiao, the catchment-wide approach, we believe more investigation work is needed in that space to understand Taiao, not to be reactive to events and end up building stop banks, spillways in areas that potentially could create problems elsewhere. We are still not confident in the modelling. We're still not confident in the costings. Every time we seem to meet, the cost seems to get increased. So there's a lot of risk in this project that could amount to cost overruns, produce unwanted effects for other whānau within the community that we believe we don't give us sufficient confidence that this is the right process and right option to take. We believe in other options such as investigating natural spillways, also land utilisation in the upper catchment. We want the upper catchment to stay in the upper catchment and not be down here on our floodplains. So how do we do that? Utilising some of this money to keep that upper catchment where it is. That's the role that I think and believe regional councils around the country have failed us in managing catchment issues that we need to address for climate change, because it's only going to get worse. So effectively, we're wanting to take a more comprehensive approach and look this, and we know there's tight time frames and financial constraints, and that seems to be how we tend to operate in this country, reactive to a problem, and we react in a way that is reactive rather than proactive. So we're wanting to make sure we get the right solution by having time to develop that right solution. But unfortunately, we understand Lawrence's role and the money's on the table. Like everyone else in the tripartite, we're trying to get to a solution as well. I guess our path is a slightly different path than our other tripartite partners have taken. We want to make sure that path is inclusive of our whānau, our iwi, our hapu, our marae, to make sure they're on that journey with us and not to focus primarily on technical solutions. There are mātauranga Māori solutions out there as well that we believe could help support a solution. But I understand decision will be made, accept the decision being made, but we will never stop fighting for our whānau to make sure that they get the information that they need in a way that they can make an informed decision. So we will be there to support them throughout this journey on whatever they need from us to do so. So, nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora, Leon.
And Leon, just to tautoko many of the points that you have raised, that what is most important is the landowner's decision in the end, so that it's fair, that there's independence to the advice that they're getting, and that it's timely. So we are committed every step of the way to do that, and thank you for your respect and professionalism through our tripartite. Tēnā koe. Ka pai. Denise, haramai. I've especially asked Denise, and she's also requested to share some of her experiences directly with those who will be impacted, herself included. Kia ora. And thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou katoa. My submission is in response to some of to Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa submission, some of it. And I speak as mana whenua. He aha te mea nui I tēnei ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing of all? It's the people, the people, the people. I'm appalled and deeply offended that myself and other affected mana whenua who have engaged in this process from the very beginning are being referred to merely as homeowners and general landowners. This is not only dismissive, but fails to acknowledge the depth of our connection to this whenua and our role in shaping the decisions that affect us. Engagement and consultation with myself and other affected whānau took place well before the preferred option was put forward. I personally listened to whānau concerns and advocated for various options early in the process to ensure the best possible outcome for our people. The vast majority of impacted whānau support this option. Of course, we would all prefer a solution that doesn't affect our whenua and our homes, but the reality is we do not have the luxury of time. This is not about being forced into a position. This process has been ongoing for 24 months. What drives our decision is the urgent concern that the next flood, the next heavy rain, and the next cyclone could take the choice out of our hands. From the outset, my utmost concern has been for the welfare of our people and the preservation of our marae and urupa where our precious tupuna rest. Whenever severe rain is predicted, my anxiety and stress levels and those of my whānau immediately escalate. That is not good for the well-being of mana whenua. Our whenua is taonga, and under the preferred option, our whenua is not being taken from us. We remain forever mana whenua. This is something we have actively negotiated by engaging in this process, not burying our heads in the sand. By its own admission, Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa states that it cannot make decisions about land for which it is not the landowner, and that supporting such a recommendation would be a breach of tikanga. By that logic, opposing a recommendation put forward by affected mana whenua could also be considered a breach of tikanga. Is the whenua more important than the people? I refuse to believe for 1 second that our tupuna would want us to remain in danger. If leasing 12 hectares of Māori land means protecting over 280 hectares of Māori land, along with its people, homes and communities, then that is the decision we must make. Someone said, the river will always do what it has. I agree. We did not flood because the bar was closed, it was open. We did not flood because of silt in the awa. We flooded because of the sheer volume of water from the catchment. The water does not like to go around the bend, and it never will. This option keeps it contained and prevents it from devastating our homes and putting our people at risk. What we have always wanted as mana whenua is the ability to speak for ourselves. Those who are not personally impacted by this option must understand and respect the sacrifices we are making for the good of Te Wairoa. We have been through every scenario, asked every hard question, and challenged every aspect of this process. We do not need negativity or uninformed theories. We need your support, respect, and understanding as we navigate the rest of this process for the safety and future of our people. And finally, thank you, Lawrence, for always showing respect to mana whenua throughout this process, because we've challenged you and we've raised our voices at you. You've continued to listen to us and respond with options to address our concerns. We understand that the success of this flood mitigation depends on access, and we need your commitment to find a way forward, not just for Wairoa, but especially for my North Clyde whānau, both Māori and non-Māori. Without a solution, our homes and businesses in North Clyde will become uninsurable, pushing us into Category 3. We all know what that would mean for Wairoa as a whole. We need your promise that you will find a way through this, for the sake of our people, our whenua and our future. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Denise. I'll welcome up Lawrence Yule, our Crown Manager.
Kia ora everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. My letter, which is in the council report, pretty much summarises my position. My position hasn't changed, but I do want to acknowledge, and we've just seen parts of it, the huge emotion, the huge scale of this decision, the controversy of it, the impacts of it, whether they are hydraulic, land access, culturally. And my challenge, and I sort of relish the opportunity, but it does keep me awake at night, I have to say, is to find a way through. And Denise, I promise you, I will do everything I can to find a solution. But there is no perfect scenario here. We haven't yet been able to find a solution that is hydrologically suitable, that avoids all whenua Māori land. And all the 18 options we looked at, they all had the same issue. We looked at an option 1D, which appeared to save 10 odd houses versus 1C. But when we ran that through, we actually impacted other houses and we had to raise between 4 and 10 new houses. So I believe, I am confident in saying to you today, as was written in my letter, that 1C is the preferable option and the best option we've been able to come up with. And despite scouring and despite offering opportunities for other people to bring something different to the table, we've been unable to find anything better or different. I want to reiterate what Mayor Little has said is there is no magic bullet. And if I had a perfect world, I would say we could spend 50 to 60 million on North Clyde, deliver a really good solution. We'd have 10, 12 million left over for the bar and put a groin there. In my ideal utopia, within 70 million, we would find a holistic flood solution for the township. In terms of Tātou in their letter and the conversation that Leon's talked about upper catchment management and that, I completely concur with that. Completely concur. But I would remind everybody that the Wairoa floodplains have been laid down over decades, over centuries. That's how they came here. So to suddenly think we're going to stop that coming down, regardless of what we do up in the hills, is, in my view, not realistic. We can plant the catchment up, and I've seen reports that said if you plant the catchment up, it doesn't actually make a lot of difference to the water flows. It makes a big difference to sediment flows, but it doesn't make a lot of difference to water flows. So the issue I'm charged with on behalf of the Crown, and I'm happy to say this, that the relationship and the working together is fundamentally improved from where it was in August. And I thank everybody for helping make that happen. But what we have to do is find a solution for North Clyde as a priority with $70 million as soon as possible. I'm now caught up in this. Every time I see a cyclone threatening in the tropics, I think, oh, what does this mean? I don't live here, but I see it because I'm connected and I understand the implications of that. So yes, some might argue that the Crown's at fault, it's driving too hard, all the rest of it. I completely disagree. The Crown has been generous with $70 million. We have now, in essence, a solution that is viable. It is technically viable, and I'm confident that, and I've had my own engineers look at that on behalf of the Crown, it's being further peer reviewed, I'm confident we have that right. What I'd like to do though is further refine 1C, and I'd like to, with your permission, Madam Chair, to suggest that the recommendations be varied slightly. What I'd like to have happen is in the next few weeks that we will look at what I would call the spillway alignment, its profile, and whether there is any ability to minimise further the number of impacted homes and whenua Māori land. I'm now confident that in a general sense 1C is the best hydraulic solution. But I'm not confident yet that we have narrowed down and refined that solution to the point where we can minimise the impact on whenua Māori land and homes. I don't want to change the timeframes and processes, but I think in the next 2 or 3 weeks, month maybe, we should seriously have a look at what other things we could do to try and improve that situation. The reason I say that is because up until now, we have effectively modelled and looked at hydraulic options. We've absolutely correctly, in my view, said that all the options impact whenua Māori land, and therefore the decision on one option over another shouldn't be impacted by land access on whenua Māori land. I believe that's the right approach. We now have the preferred technical option. What we haven't done is optimised its exact location, route and profile to see whether we can further minimise the impacts on properties and on homes. And I put by way of example, at the moment, 1C takes a corner off Takitumu Marae. Could we change the hydrology or the profile or the thing or the alignment to fix that? Could we minimise the number of homes? I think we potentially can. I don't know we can, but I think we can potentially can, and we should look at that.
Can you just correct that? Say it's not the corner of the marae, it's the corner of the driveway.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, my apologies. Yeah, I don't mean the marae. The land, sorry, my apologies. Thank you, Denise, yeah, so the land. And I think that we would do well to just take a little break from what we're doing in terms of the engagement with whenua Māori owners, unless people want to actually make sure that we are engaging with the optimal solution rather than people that we may be able to find a solution around. People have asked me, and the chair of Tātou Tātou has said that they felt left down before and they're a bit sceptical, my apologies, sceptical of the wish to consult. I sit here at this meeting, it's a public meeting, give you a personal guarantee that that is exactly what we're going to do over the next 2 to 3 months. We are going to sit down in people's homes, on marae, with groups of people and say, this is 1C, even if we modify it slightly, this is what we'd prefer to happen. What is your view around land access? What can we do to pacify you, to make you understand, to actually take away fears? Because some people are very fearful. And there is a combination in those land ownerships that I know of in 1C. Some people would like to go now and would like the cash and to leave. Others, they would like to understand how they can move their beloved homestead to another property. Others are not so keen. So there is a mix in that. There is a mix. I am incredibly respectful of the concept and the importance of the whenua and its relationship to its owners. Incredibly respectful of that. And I have a sort of like a personal commitment to understand how, as you asked, Denise, we can find a way through that. And to me, the simplest thing to do is try and avoid where possible. Where not possible, seek to offer an alternative that is everybody can support. Because at the end of the day, if we can't get land access, we don't have a solution. So I understand how difficult this is. I thank you to the Regional Council and Wairau District for all the staff, my own team who are here today, for all the people that have worked on this together. I can say to you as a council that we're in a much better place than we were several months ago. And I think that we can do this. But we just need to have enough flexibility, we just need to have enough time to make sure that whatever we do has considered all the options and is respectful of all the points that are being raised by people around us. So I don't have anything further to say. I would like Nick or somebody to consider some resolutions that might actually just give a little bit more direction around what I think we need to do in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Lawrence. Okay, councillors, we may open up for questions to any of our speakers. Unfortunately, Leon's not here on behalf of Tātou Tātou to answer any, but any other speakers, please, questions for them. Who would like to start? Councillor Williams?
Yeah, Chair, just a question on what the, I'll come to comments later, but a question on what the Crown Manager's just outlined. Resolution 6 is to direct the completion of a project development plan which is due 7 March. And I guess what's been put on the table is that it would have, as Mr Casely suggested, with sufficient scope to allow for refinement of options prior to step 7, which is otherwise the next step, the engagement with the landowner. So that really is probably the essence of it. Yes. To complete a PDP with sufficient scope for refinement of the option to minimise impacts on, to further minimise impacts on whenua Māori, and to then, as the next step, work with the Crown Manager. Would that be what we're talking about here?
That would sum it up, yes. And we do have a draft resolution to that effect. Thank you.
The only other question I had is, not a talk about distinguishment and alienation. My understanding from the paper, paragraph 72, I think it is that we're looking at options that wouldn't involve any alienation of whenua Māori.
Yeah.
And so I just really wanted to ask a little bit and get some assurance around that. Are we looking at, I'm not sure you can answer this, easements? And would those easements preserve the underlying title or the freehold, the ownership within the whenua Māori owners for all time?
I'll let Jess answer this if she feels like I was straight, but yes. The concept is that...
Lawrence? So I can't hear online. Yeah.
The answer is yes. The concept is that an easement can be granted, it's basically an easement in perpetuity. They will be compensated for that easement by a one-off payment at the beginning, which is effectively its land value that'll be given at the beginning. They can still walk on their land, but other uses will be constrained. But yes, they can continue to own it. If somebody does want to sell, though, outright, that will also be allowed as well. I'm not sure that option's available, but it will be wanted, but we're open-minded. But we're not seeking to alienate Māori whenua land.
So easement in perpetuity, you said?
Yep.
Would there be a willingness to discuss with the landowners, say an easement over a 100-year period or something like that, whereby if there is this progression of catchment management scale approaches that one day in the future, taking a Mokopuna decision view or lens, mean you no longer need the spillway, the easement could be surrendered and status quo reverts. Is that something that I'm not suggesting we necessarily do, but it's a potential option to discuss with landowners?
Kia ora,
Yes,
Jess,
absolutely.
can you introduce
Yeah,
yourself?
Jessica
Thank you.
Easton, Legal Counsel working for Hawke's Bay Regional Council. That's absolutely correct. One of the presumptions under the Public Works Act in any case is if you don't need that whenua
Yeah.
for the purpose of those works,
Then it would go back
future,
anyway.
it has to go back anyway.
Right. So if it was
So
struck-
regardless of the length of the easements,
Thank
we
you.
will always be subject to those provisions under the Act.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert, kia ora.
Yeah, just another one on the same lines, Lawrence, is will those whānau have access to legal advice?
Yes, they will have access to legal and valuation advice. That is all part of the Public Works Act framework. And at all the public meetings and all the whānau meetings I've had, I've made them aware of that. We have to make a decision at what point we trigger that yet. And one of my reasons for recommending a slight change is to make sure we're actually finalise the preferred option in a bit more detail so we know which landowners we're talking to.
Yeah, because just as Martin said, if you can, those timeframes are involved and a lot of whānau want to know what their rights are. Yeah.
Good questions. Further questions, councillors? Points of clarification. Thank you, Councillor Harding.
Kia ora, Chair. Probably one for you, Lawrence. Maintenance, ongoing maintenance, that hasn't been a key criterion, so presumably you're not seeing significant differences between different proposals in that?
No, the ongoing maintenance, and this is a decision for you to make, but the ongoing maintenance is likely to be a regional council cost. The capital is funded as part of this project. The concept is quite a natural spillway, so it is grassed. We haven't yet determined how that's going to be managed. The most normal options you would do in this would be to harvest grass for silage. Another option is to graze sheep. We cannot have a lot of fences across the spillway, so there's going to have to be an arrangement for how that's grazed, if it's grazed. And we do not want a lot of structures in the spillway because they cause eddies. So sheep troughs, fence posts, all those types of things. So most of the animal control would be via polywire electric type fencing. And one of the problems with allowing individual whānau, if they still own the land, to have their own animals is the fencing obligations and the impacts that could have on the hydraulic efficiency of the spillway. So we haven't got into all those details, but long and short of it is, the best solution is to have a grass spillway maintained at somewhere between 50 and 75 millimetres. That has a very good effect for about a 12-15 hour period of stopping scouring. It's a very efficient. What you don't want in spillways is different things popping up because the water tends to eat away at that. So you want a smooth surface. And the roads clearly will be at grade. Waihere and Ruataniwha Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rodley.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions.
Fantastic.
If you will indulge me.
Go ahead.
First one to you, Lawrence. Referring to the paper 7.6, you speak of the pause in the design options for 1C. Is that contrary to what you're now suggesting, that you will continue that, or could you just flesh
Yeah,
that out?
what we were saying, and I reiterate this, in my view, the single biggest critical thing we need to focus on for the next little period of time is conversations with landowners and a better understanding of land access. We will need to do some more modelling work in the very short term if there are other options we can identify about modifying the spillway. But I think most of the priority for the next 3 months should be on landowner conversations and trying to get a better understanding of that. But to do that, I just want to make sure we've actually looked at the best modifications of 1C that we can, because I don't want to be having conversations with whānau and then find out that actually in a month's time we don't really need to do that because we can do something different. So I think just having a little pause in the active engagement with affected landowners and better understanding what some of the optionality might be like within the spillway would be a useful thing to do.
And so can you just also confirm that whilst you'll be pausing as described, you won't be pausing the other work that you're doing around the Kopero, around the park?
No, that it will all carry on as is planned. Yep.
Full steam ahead, thank you. Secondly, possibly to Nick. Is Nick still there?
Yep, Nick's here.
Hello. We're obviously all here today to, with the end goal being to shift North Clyde from Cat 2 to Cat 1. Could you give us an idea of what the trigger will be for that decision, and potentially could I be as brave as to ask for when that might, like what are the triggers? Chair, you might even like to speak about Waihi. But also, could you also shed some light on how this piece of infrastructure will impact the categorisation of the whānau and the properties at Frasertown, please?
I'll start at the end first. So the idea of the project is that all of those properties that are currently in 2C will be able to go to 1, including those properties in Frasertown that are currently in 2C. They will need, as I understand, to look at raising in Frasertown because the spillway itself won't do the job for them. In terms of the triggers, and Mr. Dolly will correct me if I get this wrong, but the triggers essentially are that the interest in the land has been secured and has been said here that would likely be around things like easements, where it's freehold Māori land, rather than the way we might progress that on general title. That we have a consentable solution. And we're just working through the boundaries of the OIC, the Ordering Council, because we may need to get that adjusted to fit with the 1C solution, and that the funding is in place. And the Crown has allocated 70 million. We now have to satisfy the business case to get the money released, essentially, to go ahead. So I guess the summary of all of that is that we don't have to wait for the solution to have been built to go to 1. Provided all those triggers have been met, we can go to 1. And that that will likely assist people in their discussions with banks and insurers as we go through that process. I'm not going to give you an exact time frame now because I think the next 2 or 3 months, as Mr. Yule has identified, are really critical with just working out how that option will work. But happy to come back to council once we know.
But what I'm hearing is that we don't have to wait for this infrastructure to be completed for those properties to move into Category 1. Did you want to flesh out?
Just by way of example, Waihi, which is a much simpler project with a stop bank, very soon in the next few weeks we'll have the last piece of land easement agreement signed, and essentially that will trigger us going to 1. That's the last piece of the puzzle.
That's reassuring. You did mention, this is actually not on my questions, but you've just made me think of it. You did mention the implications to insurance companies. Do we have any levers or any mechanisms that we can support whānau in their discussions with insurance companies?
Less with individual companies, but certainly via the Insurance Council, and I met the Chief Executive of the Insurance Council recently, and we have a regular dialogue with them, and he asked that if there were any issues arising from any of the flood mitigation projects, that we wanted the council to look at, that we should pass them on to him. So that's our primary mechanism, and it's been in place really since the cyclone.
And what's the logistics on that? So if whānau having trouble with insurance, what's their pathway into the regional council to have that support?
Usually via their community connections. So but we can take that away and think about how that's going to work over the next wee while. Ultimately, we can't be the broker of that, but we can raise it with the insurance council.
And lastly, possibly with you, Nick, so under the OIC, the Orders in Council, and the Swirler framework that we're operating under here, I think we're talking about the fast tracking process, aren't we? That people have here bandied around. What's the so at that point, will there be a process for public submissions into the project? And normally would go through the normal consenting process, and there would be an opportunity. Is that public opportunity still exist, or?
Essentially, and again, I'll get some advice from Jess or Andrew if I need it here. I will differentiate between the fast track process. That this isn't the fast track process. What the Order in Council essentially does is front load the consenting process, so that the work that you would normally do in engagement through a consent process happens in advance. And so all of the work that's going on now is really looking to satisfy the OIC. We have to set up a very specific group of people and organisations who are named as part of the OIC, so as well as mana whenua and the local community, organisations like DOC and others get invited to be into that process. And then there is a relatively short time for the council then to deal with the application. So I think there isn't a big public process then, and it limits appeal rights. I'll just check with council that I haven't led you astray there.
So it won't go through a normal hearings process?
No.
It skips that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Just one more. I don't think I really want to ask it, but I'm mindful that the 70 million, if we don't have a solution, it could be just easily taken back or redistributed elsewhere. And I refer to the whakatauki ko mate te kāinga tahi, ka ora te kāinga rua. So, which really speaks about one house falls down, then you go to the next one. Or you have a plan B, I guess is really what it's talking about. And at the last meeting we talked about there has been lack of consultations through the Māori landowners, although we know that they have been talked to at different points, but really on the points of law that you're speaking about. And I noticed in the CIA written by Piripi Winiata, which I congratulate him, done a really good job with the time he's had. He brings up a couple of points, and one obviously is the obvious one about Tato. They've just completed their settlement not that long ago, and one of the main contentions was the use of the Public Works Act and how it has affected and lost land in this place in Wairoa many times over. And it's all in the settlement hearing papers. So. And some people have the affiliation with Wairoa in this particular area, Ruataniwha, is really steeped in a lot of history. A lot of Wairoa's main chiefs built their houses over there because of the story of Tapuwai. As one of the most outstanding ancestors, he was considered, he had a visitor, and the guy asked, he said, look, what's your definition of a chief? And he referred to the Pātū Watawata o Kaukuranui, which is effectively the area from Maru to the sea, Tawantinanga to the sea. And all his children and grandchildren have lived on that whenua since. Probably the main ones are the descendants of Te Kapa Matatoru. No Te Kapa Matatoru based out Ruataniwha. And since then you've had the chiefs of Ngārangi Mataio from there. You've had the Pitiera Kopu building at Takitimu. You had the Upper Two building down there as well. Rangituanui's on this side of the river, but so they're the seedbed of chiefs is the term that's been used too. So that's how revered their tangata whenua status is, I guess, and some people may well choose not to move. Is there a plan B? I'd hate to go to the government without a plan B.
There is not an obvious plan B, it's fair to say. We've done a lot of work to look at plan Bs, and I want to separate out the two real issues that Wairoa faces from a flood protection perspective. One is the overtopping from heavy rainfall at the showgrounds. That's largely controlled by the amount of rain that happens in the upper catchment. That's one severe risk Wairoa faces in big events. The other risk is the impact of the poor positioning of the bar and low flow events, which means it gets blocked and the lower parts of Wairoa get inundated. Hawke Road is an example, Motu, that sort of thing. So the two things are very separate and very different, but they both need to be solved to try and give Wairoa holistic flood protection. Councillor Lambert, what I'm trying to say in terms of this little look that we want to have in the next few weeks is there a way of further minimising the impact on whenua Māori land and homes and giving us the same sort of hydraulic solution within the rough footprint of what we're talking about? I am acutely aware of what you've just told us. Not all the history in so much detail, but the passion and sensitivity goes with that. That, to me, remains the biggest single thing we need to try and unlock and sort out. And I believe we can make good progress in the next little while in doing that without compromising the PDP, the government's processes and all the things we need to do. It requires us to be nimble. It requires us to sit down and have honest conversations with people along the way. And if we do end up having to ask to try and have an easement over a piece of Māori whenua land, I want to be really sure in my own mind that we've explored all other options that might avoid that first. So if there's no other option, I want us to be able to say, we've looked at everything, we can't find another option. Unfortunately, we need to have access to this piece of land. And rightly so, we will have to answer that question at the Māori Land Court in any event. So I would rather front load that and try and see whether there are some solutions in the interim. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With part of the history,
Oh.
there's a saying that Wahiriri Road never ends.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we talk about Te Kapo Mātuturu, Mentanese are the mokopunas that come off as mokopuna of Mātuturu and Te Kapo Mātuturu. Wahiriri Road never ends.
Kia ora.
Can we use the mic, please? Can we use the mic, please?
Yes, sorry, that was someone in the gallery, Mike. Yep, from now on, yes. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, Chair, I was actually going to move towards recommendations. I don't know if there's any other questions, but I was just wanting to have a bit of a discussion about the amendments that have been tabled and one that I've got in mind. I don't know if we're there yet.
No, I'll
just... other
just...
questions, but
Yep,
you know
we'll wait to the questions.
Yep.
Are there any further questions?
Yeah, just one.
Yes, Councillor Lambert.
Sorry, Lawrence. Obviously, that you've got to focus on the solution, and that's great. If we don't have a solution, does that? How far does Category 3 go? Does it the whole of North Clyde, like right over to Te Uhi Hill? Or?
Well, I can't. I haven't got a map here, but it's 280 odd houses. Some across the other side. And you could break the project down, so you could do some work on the ski club side potentially, but the biggest impact will be on the North Clyde side, where there's around 280 homes. There will be no protection for the businesses either, which becomes a big problem for insurance and their viability in Wairoa. So, effectively, I can't see a bigger threat to Wairoa than not having flood protection.
Cool, thank you.
See, my proposal was not actually to move the recommendations. I think Councillor Roadley and Lambert may wish to do that.
Yes.
But what I just wanted to table is some suggestions as to what they might say, as refined, as recommended just now by the Crown Manager and earlier by Mr Casely, with a slight tweak.
Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
Yes,
I've got that
you
in front of me. So we've got, so when perhaps Councillors Roadley and Lambert are wanting to do that, we've got recommendations 1 to 10.
We do.
Now, I would suggest that number 6 has the additional words that I mentioned earlier, which I'd be grateful if the governance team could perhaps type down now. At the end of it, we could read, with sufficient scope for option refinement to minimise impacts on whenua Māori. That we then have in place of current 7, the recommended 7 that we've got on the paper here, which is agree that the next step is in the project working with the Crown Manager and the tripartite partners is to continue to refine the spillway. So that would align with what I've just said as to the scope of the PDP to minimise the impact and maximise probability of securing land access. But I think it then needs to say, rather than replacing 7 altogether, it needs to keep the words and to then engage with impacted landowners in the 1C option area to determine the probability, because by simply replacing option 7 in the way proposed, you'd lose the wording about then engaging with the impacted landowners. So it's essentially bolting this 7 with that 7, and then adding the 2 suggested new items about reporting back.
Okay.
So that's what I'm proposing, and I'm happy to discuss that with the governance team a little more.
Governance, do we have that down?
And then
Yeah, so it's the new 7 we've got on the paper here that I just read out some of, would replace effectively the first part of the existing 7, but you'd keep and then engage with impacted landowners in the option 1C area to determine probability of securing access to allow the project to proceed.
Yep. So you're basically making sure there's a sequence.
Yes, and also I just didn't want to lose the words and to then engage with impacted landowners, because that's the key thing here, where the message is that we need to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to
Okay.
speak.
Thank you for your suggestion, Martin. That makes sense, and that doesn't change the intention of the direction.
I think it captures the conversation today.
But I will direct to you, Councillor Roadley.
I also wanted to add on to the recommendations. Is that all right?
So we've got 1 through to 10 with that 7 amendment and the 2 news that are stated here.
Yep.
Did you want to add another new?
No, I just would like to, or propose to add to recommendation 4, notes that the work has been guided by the tripartite group, the Crown Manager, and I'd also like to add in the stakeholder group, who were very influential at the early days.
Yes.
And to acknowledge that work.
That's true. Yep. Thank you. Councillor Roadley, would you be happy for it to say supported by the stakeholder group?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Are you clear on Councillor Martin's direction with his suggestions to the recommendations?
Yes, and I would like to move.
And you'd like to move those changes, thank you. Stakeholder group. Okay.
Could I, Chair, would it be acceptable if I went through them, please, before I move them?
Absolutely, just to bring clarity to...
Clarity, and also for our whānau online who may not have them in front of me. So bear with me, because there are now 12. So with your indulgence, please, I'd like to move the recommendations 1 through 12, that the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, 1, receives and considers the North Island Weather Events Wairoa flood mitigation staff report, which is what we have in the agenda. 2, agrees that given the nature and the significance of the issues to be considered and decided, and that reflects the community engagement to date, Council has sufficient understanding of the views and preferences of interested parties and affected persons to enable it to make relevant decisions without consulting further with the community at this time. 3, notes that investigation of options for flood mitigation for North Clyde Category 2C have been completed to a stage where a preferred option has been identified. 4, notes that work has been guided by the tripartite group and the Crown Manager, supported by the stakeholder group. 5, adopts option 1C as the preferred option for flood mitigation for Category 2C area of Wairoa.
Keep going. Yeah, yeah.
As it provides the best possible mitigation within this project, within budget. 6, directs the project team to complete a project development plan, the PDP, for submission to the Crown based on 1C.
Or just can we pause there? Because we'll just pause there.
With sufficient scope.
With sufficient scope for option refinement to minimise the impacts on whenua Māori. I think there was another sentence after that.
No,
That's it.
Thank you, Di.
7, bear with me on this one, agree that the next steps in the project, working with the Crown Manager and the tripartite partners, is to continue to refine the spillway profile and alignment to minimise the impact of option 1C on impacted landowners so as to maximise the probability of securing land access necessary to allow the project to proceed, and then to engage with impacted landowners in the 1C option area to determine the probability
Yes, that's right.
of securing land access necessary to allow the project to proceed.
Okay.
8, notes that land access will be secured in accordance with the Public Works Act 1981. 9, notes that land access over Māori freehold land will be secured in accordance with Te Ture Whenua Māori Act 1993, and the Māori Land Court and Te Tumu Pairoa are already engaged in this process. 10, thanks the mana whenua, the Wairoa community, landowners, homeowners, the stakeholder group, the tripartite group, the Crown Manager for their work in reaching this step in the project. 11, instruct the CE and request the Wairoa Crown Manager to regularly update Council and other tripartite partners on the progress being made to minimise the impact of option 1C on impacted landowners. 12, instruct the CE that any material change to option 1C will be further considered by Council after consideration by the tripartite partners.
Thank you.
I'd like to move the
Well done, Di.
112 as read.
Can I just make a correction in 11 to instruct the CE and request the Crown Manager instead of the Wairoa Crown Manager, sorry. That's supposed to come out. Okay, can I please have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Lambert. You've read a long list there, Councillor Ridley. Would you like to speak or have a break and speak later?
No, I think I'll speak now while I'm on a roll. Thank you. Did that get seconded? Sorry.
Yes, we've got a seconder.
Right, kapai. Thank you. I just have a wee list of acknowledgements that I'd like to make in reflection to the project in the paper as written. Thank you to the Andrew and Steve and Co for the work gone into that. So I'd like to really acknowledge that the amount of work that has gone in so far by the project team, by the Crown Manager, and all the teams that sit behind you that do the majority of this work. That have got us here, that we can recommend option 1C as the preferred option. But also acknowledge that we're partway through a very a long process, and we really are have got a long way to go, and that the decision that we are on the recommendations that we've got in front of us today, in no way are we making decisions on behalf of property owners. This is actually a council decision on moving this project forward, a council project forward, on behalf of the Crown. I'd like to acknowledge the significant time and effort that the stakeholder put in early on in the piece. That was really nearly impossibly tough for those people, and we really do appreciate the task that they did in working with largely technical options, moving from the 18, which were established and built in response to community thoughts and visions for what they had in their minds. They didn't just dream them up out of the Sorohi. They were ideas coming from within this community, and that group had the very difficult job of turning, it was more than 18 because there were multiple versions of various ones, down into the 2 that we're looking at today, down into the recommendation to progress 1C. I'd like to acknowledge that this has been potentially for the council a new way of working, of actually putting the community at the heart of those impacted, to be at the heart of the project. You've heard this morning the Crown Manager talk about his willingness to include, to tweak, to go back over repeatedly different ideas and change the project as people have come up with new ideas. And that's been the case, as I understand it, right through. It was the big work of the stakeholder group, was as people came up with ideas or thoughts to bring those forward, and they have all been taken seriously. And I hope that the community can feel that and feel the ownership of the way that this project has developed and been shaped to reflect those, and will continue to be as we go forward. I think that will do for this round. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lambert.
Yeah, kia ora tātou. Like Councillor Radley, certainly give our appreciation to everyone that's contributed to the many meetings and amount of options that are poured out of those videos and from WSP over the last 2 years. It is fitting to have this hui today on the 13th of February. And I would say that having participated in the stakeholder group, totally agree with Denise Lawrence. You've done an awesome job so far. But as the Canterbury earthquake has shown us, it's probably about halfway. It's still a lot of work to do yet. Yeah, and as you've said yourself, there's still a really lot of water to go under the bridge, so I applaud you for that. And it's a shame we didn't get the Māori Land Court in any earlier, but it is what it is, and it's good to see you pushing through and getting on and doing your job as the appointed Crown Managers. And also Kate, yourself. We've had our disagreements in the past, but we're definitely here. We both have our roles to play in pushing Wairau along, so good to be in your house today. As the saying goes, ko te whare tūki te painga he kaina te ahi, he wei ko te whare tūki te pātū wata o Kaukuranui, he tohu rangatira. So, yeah, this place used to be referred to as the pātū wata o Kaukuranui, which was a reference that Tapu actually inherited the mana of Kaununu, as Kaukuranui was his eldest son. And any house that stood here, as long as it was within Tapuai's reign, was considered a whare rangatira. So yeah, a lot to do and a lot of things to uphold here in Wairau. You'll find that the whole of Kahungunu looks to Wairau as the actual starting point of being Kahungunu. The name comes from Ngā Tuku Watanui of Kahununu, which is from out by Frasertown there, in Maru, and it's derived here. They know Kahununu starts here. So, yeah, and I do wish you luck. You've set a clear path, and if you can stick to it, if our whānau get in behind it, then we're all in behind it. Yeah, but if they don't, Plan B might have to get a look in. But yeah, thanks to everyone who's participated so far. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Lambert. Just looking around the room, Councillor Foley, would you like a few minutes?
Thank you, Chair. And look, I just wanted to start off acknowledging the Wairoa community. I've been on regional council for 6 years, and it's just been really heartbreaking to continue to see the events that have happened up here. And while usually we visit up here and it's in reaction or response to one of those events, I guess there's some excitement from me today in that we have this opportunity in front of us, notwithstanding from what we've heard today that there's some real hard work and conversations still to be had, but just pleasing for why we're here today, but just recognising all that's gone on, not just in 6 years, and things like Cyclone Bola have been mentioned. I just want to acknowledge all the speakers today. I think for those of us that are not deeply engaged in this process, you did a really good job of laying out exactly where everyone's got up to this point, and so it's certainly helped this to get to this stage of the meeting, and the recommendations for me personally. Really good to hear about the comprehensive work going on, not just for this project, but for all the holistic approach, I guess. There's a lot of mahi going on elsewhere from just this project, and I think it's all going to have a very positive impact. So I think from everything we've heard, and like Lawrence, we're all, as regional councillors, we're all connected to this community up here, and I think to not follow through with this step today, there'd be some real concern about the future of this community, this township, this local economy, and so from that, I will be supporting the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Foley. Councillor Van Beek.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Once again, I would like to apologise as a regional councillor that I actually haven't been involved in this process. Mainly also 2 years ago, I was affected severely by Cyclone Gabrielle, and Craig, I should have been here more and spent more time, but I haven't. But at the same time, as a second term councillor, as Will has alluded to, Wairoa always has been a very important part of our regional work, although we sometimes got from the chamber here that we didn't actually have Wairoa in the forefront of our work, and we were mainly thinking about Hiratonga and maybe Central Hawke's Bay. But truly, Wairoa has always been very important for us, and I personally feel that we now finally have a solution. And I would like to, flip it a little bit as an affected landowner, and my family was heavily affected by the event. That those who are now living in 2C, what they are going through, and they have equal stories to tell if this would not go ahead for their future and for their whānau. And so it's a balancing act that needs to occur, and once again, my hat off for those who actually have done this work already. And I really can see some emotions from the people that have spoken, that it's not taken lightly, the decision that we're going to make. So once again, Cyclone Bola was a major from a distance for me, and no solution was found when it was talked about. I think you as a community need to take the opportunity now to find that solution, and I believe we as a Hawke's Bay Regional Council, but most and foremost, the Crown is in support of a solution. Whatever that solution may be, and the best solution will be the best solution for the people of Wairoa. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and participate in the decision making. Thank you.
Kia ora. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone. I echo and I talk all of those comments. Just a couple of points from me. I certainly didn't envy you in your role, Lawrence, and you've continued your great service to this region and taking it on. I didn't envy it any more than I have envied any of my colleagues around the Wairoa District Council or the landowners and people of Wairoa community having to work through what is in effect Hobson's choice and a very fraught issue. But for my part, I'm not going to stand in the way of $70 million being available, contingent on lodging the project plan with the Crown. The cry from Wairoa on February 13th, or certainly by February 15th, when we got to hear it, was nothing was done after Bowler. And now's the chance to actually rectify that. So no, I'm not standing in the way, but the critical path, as Mayor Little shared, will always be and remain the position of whenua Māori and whānau, the whānau whenua, mana whenua in particular. There's nothing that, and it's the question I asked before, that's on the table here proposing extinguishment or alienation of whenua Māori, and there's nothing that's irreversible if those longer term holistic solutions one day provide an alternative protection for the community. So just finally, I just want to acknowledge, Denise, your courage. You know, it's an example to the nation. The ability to make a sacrifice and see the wider community good, that's a burden all of the mana whenua and landowners in the area are carrying at the moment, and just really wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Oh, look, sorry, it leads me on to the point of paragraph 8 of the paper that that land access will be secured in accordance with the Public Works Act. Yeah. That carries an implication that there's some sort of compulsory acquisition. I think that better reads land access will be secured in accordance with all rights of the landowners affected and afforded under the Public Works Act, rights to compensation, rights to advice, rights to a fair process. Access is actually going to be progressed in discussions and with the oversight of the Māori Land Court. And so I do think paragraph 8 possibly needs refinement to say in accordance with full rights of the affected landowners afforded under the Public Works Act. Whether we need to actually make that amendment, that's the intention. There is no intention to take land against the will of the landowners here.
Thank you. Kia ora, Councillor Williams. I'd just like to thank every single person in this room. You've all played a part, and I reflect on with you, Craig, and with Leon, with our CEOs, to negotiate with the Crown the best deal that we could get for Wairoa. And it was under the premise that nothing happened after Bowler. And departments at the time would go back and forth, not wanting to give to Wairoa. And so we had a minister at the time willing to take us seriously with our recovery. And that's what started it. And then through the tripartite partnership, we decided that is how we're going to work together going forward in this project. I want to thank the stakeholder group members from Wairoa District Council, Tātou Tātou Te Wairoa, HBRC, community members, local farming community, local business community, and representatives from Tākitamu and Tawhiti Amaru Marae. They have done an incredible job going through 18 options to get us to this point. Okay? And with your guidance as Crown Manager, thank you, Lawrence, for making sure that we get to this point. Getting to one preferred option has been insurmountable. So thank you so much for your mahi. I would not agree to these if this was about alienation of Māori land, but it is not. That is not what this is. This is about the next step, ensuring that we engage fairly and timely with the landowners who haven't currently been engaged with, to make sure that there is a fair process of negotiation. And for that, I want to see it happen, because the alternative is going back to the Crown and them saying you're going to Category 3, which we do not want for this community. And that's why we need to make this crucial decision today, to understand what pathway we take, and we do not muck people around about what is the viable solution, which is why I'm strong in making sure that we take the best pathway we can with the options in front of us, and that is our job as governors. But I full-heartedly actually know what it's like. I spoke with my whānau last night, they're affected, and my uncle said, it's going to happen again. So that's why you have to move forward. It's going to happen again. Which is like, deep in my heart, I think this is absolutely the best place that we need to be at and get to. There's a lot of hard work to go. It's not in the bag. There are off-ramps, so I want councillors to understand that if landowners do not want this, that is their right. And we must support that, like Leon has said. But we need to move forward. We need to move forward with a solution to keep this town alive. So I fully support our recommendations today. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Jock.
Look, I'd like to support my colleagues too in acknowledging everyone that's spoken here today. Actually, I also have written your name down there, Denise, in particular respect for that. That was a difficult thing you did for this council. It helped me a lot. I also want to give some context to what we're talking about. A lot of the conversation has been around land access and the difficulty associated with that. And the context relates to the fact that that is true of all the other projects that we are engaged in. It's a bigger deal here for obvious reasons, but this is the big deal. Of the $240 million that was secured for the Crown, 70 of it is this. So it is going to be the big deal. And we've been given very good reasons around that. But we shouldn't be surprised about that. As I say, it's happening with all the other projects that we've got on the go in any event. I think really, in terms of the recommendation, I'm strongly going to support it, and we kind of got no choice. We simply got to make this work. Opportunities like this have been very, very difficult to bring about. The chair has just alluded to the absolute stellar job that everyone did to get that money out of government. We simply have to make that work. Those opportunities don't come around every day. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Harding.
Kia ora. So I'm going to be brief, which is not usually me, but it's pretty much all been said. This is a really historical context, not just historical in that it's 2 years to the day since the first recent cyclone, but it is the first chance to actually make a big difference, put it right, put flood protection in, and that has to be our overriding focus. And I just thank everyone who's put us in this position now where we have a pathway towards that. But overwhelmingly, I can't get past the fact that that puts a tremendous burden on those people who have to shift or give up rights. And my heart goes out to all of you for that. So, kia kaha.
Thank you. Councillor Sears.
Kia ora, thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm speaking in support of the recommendations. I do think it's a slightly strange situation we're in, where the Crown is fully funding something and they have a Crown manager who is making the proposal, yet we're the ones that are needing to make the decision on this. I do understand it will be our asset and it will be our liability, of course, at the end of it. But actually, this is a Crown process for me, and I am driven in that view to support the Crown manager's view. I do want to acknowledge Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa's submission, particularly around integrated catchment management, and note that Wairoa is one of the largest customers, if we put it that way, of our work in catchment management, in erosion control and sediment management in the upper catchment. We need to do far more, we know that, 250 million hectares, I think it is. No, 250,000 hectares still to go. We're doing 1,000 hectares a year, so there's a lot more to be done. But it is a focus, Wairoa is the focus of most of that work. And it is important, integrated catchment management. So I don't deny that. Land access, that's right, really, I mean, it's not just the biggest issue, it is the only issue to take this project forward. And again, I go back to the Crown. This is not our process to manage, it is the Crown manager's. And he has today, for me, which is what has given me comfort, what I heard you say, Lawrence, was both personally and as Crown manager, you're standing behind the integrity of that process. And it's that really which has given me confidence to stand behind the recommendation, because at the end of the day, you have promised that the Crown will honour its obligations in the way it deals with that. Thank you. Kia ora.
Councillor Hawke on that.
Waira, tēnā koe te hia mana. I roto I ēnei momo take ngā wero kei mui a tātou kare kore ka tūtū te puehu. E harai te mahi māma e mahi uaua rawa. Ki te tai atu tātou ki ngā whainga o te katoa, te taia. Engari, ka tai atu tātou ki tēnei whakaitanga, tautoko rawa tia au I ngā kupu taunaki te kaumārua. Heoi, nā ēnei kupu a hau e aro atu ana tāku whakaitanga, ensures the retention of land and Māori ownership and continued rights of access for Māori after completion of the project. Tika tonu rā ua kupu, tēnei au ka whakairiaki aku whakaaro ki taua rerenga kōrero, me te mea hoki nei tēnei au ka tautoko. Heoi, ka huri atu ki ngā mihi o te wā, ngā mihi, kua mihi kētia nei, e oku nei hoa mahi ngā kaikauni hero o te matau a Māui. Nā rātau e uhi nei ngā mihi ki rungi a koutou e whai kaha nei ki te tai atu ki e nei whakaitanga. Nō reira tēnā koutou. Te kaunihira, te wairoa, tēnā ka mihi rā ki a koutou. Nā koutou e arahi nei I tō koutou hāpori kia tutuki, kia pai ai, kia whakawaha I o rātau hiahia. Tēnā no hoki koe e Lawrence, tō kaha, tō mōhiotanga kia whai haere, kia whai I ngā huarahi mo te katoa. E hara mo te Māori anake, he wai, tēnei au ka mihi. Atu I tēnā ka huri atu te kei o taku waka mihi, ki roto I a koutou e mau nei I te mana o te whenua. A koutou, ngā tangata whenua o kupu, kua whārikiriki ki mui a tātou e Denise. Kōrua tahi ko Leon. Ko te hononga o kōrua kōrero me pēnei rā te whakautu. I tēnei waihoake nei, ngā rākau whawhai ki te taha kia hauhau te rongo tā te mea rā ko tā kōrua kōrero me ki nei ko tātou no te taha wairua, mō tātou tamariki, mō tātou mokopuna te take. Nō reira, tēnā kōrua tahira. Tēnā koutou te kāhui tripartite, anō nei he wero kei mui a koutou ki te anga whakamua I ēnei mahi kei mui a tātou. Nō reira, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou. O tira, kia tāpiri atu te reo wairua ki ngā mate huhua o te wā. Te rangi, te wiki te marama o te tau. Tāku nei mōhio, te paupautanga o te rā, ka nehua ai tēnā manu tioriori a tauni huata ki Rāmoto. Nō reira, ngā mate huri rapa i te whenua o te wairua, ngā mate o te awa he karere, he tipua, koutou, haere, haere, haere i runga i te wai roa, haere koutou i runga i te wai nui, haere koutou i runga i te wairua, nā hākui nā hakoroma, ki tōku nei iwi o te wairua, kia kaha, kia mana nui, kia anga whakamua, tēnā koutou.
Councillor Hokianga. Right of reply, Councillor Roadley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors, for your words. I just would like to acknowledge within the Taratara o Te Wairoa submission, their work referenced, Councillor Sears, in the upper catchment. It's a signal to all that we have our group manager for catchment management here with us today, because we do recognise it as a significant work, not just in the Wairoa catchment, all the contributing catchments, and also across our whole region. As one of those landowners up in the upper catchment, we are at the top of where the Ruakaturi feeds into the Wairoa River. What we do on our properties in those upper areas does have a direct impact on whānau further down the catchment. You have my absolute commitment that we are working incredibly hard in this space. It is a work that we are looking also to refine, to get better at, to do more of, to be more effective, to work on farm practices, to keep sediment out of the water, to manage our soils better. And that work continues and will continue. But that is not the decision that we have before us today. The decision we have before us today is about moving this project forward, to allowing Steve and Andrew and their teams to put that project plan into the Minister of Finance and secure that funding for this project to continue. That is what the job is ahead of us today. So let us keep that at front of mind as we make this decision now.
Thank you, Councillor Roadley. That concludes deliberations, and I thank you all for your views, your feelings, your insights into how we've progressed this. A special thanks to you, Nick, the IPMO team who've been here from the start, and Kitia, I know you're at the back, but you've been integral all the way through this project. So thank you, ngā mihi nui kia koe. So councillors, we have our recommendations on the table. Thank you, Councillor Roadley, for bringing those together. Councillor Williams. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Whakamana. Kitia, kia ora rā.
Aha koe he turuturu aku nei kupu kānui te mihi. A kānui te mihi, kānui te hari, mō tō koutou nei kōrero i tēnei rā. Just quickly, the appreciation of those of us who are personally impacted by this decision. It gives us certainty to be able to move forward. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not only for us today, but for our tamariki and our mukapuna who come after us. Nē rā te mihatu ki o koutou mō tō koutou mahi kaha, tō koutou mahi aroha.
tō koutou nei mahi ta whaitia mai a mātou. Your deliberations this morning have demonstrated not only leadership and strength, but also compassion and aroha for our community and those of us who are impacted. Tika wō kōrero I te koro ki ngā mana whenua. I use the word mana whenua a bit loosely, but I agree with the points that have been raised around the ongoing engagement with homeowners, property owners, landowners, beneficial landowners, and those who are directly and indirectly impacted. Pai tēnei te kōrero a tātou nei Crown Manager wa Lawrence. And we hear the commitments that have been made today, and we look forward to travelling this journey with you all, and with us all, and with all of our whānau. He mi tēnei kia koe te whananga Denise, tō kōrero I āwhina tautoko mā tēnei whānau I rungi I tērā taha. Kia kaha I a tātou, kia kaha I a tātou. The beginning of a long journey for us, and under this House, on behalf of His Worship, elected members of Wairua District Council, we thank you once, we thank you twice, we thank you 3 times. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, huri noa mai wā tātou nei whare. Kia ora mai no tātou. I hand back to the table for you to offer your closing karakia. Kia ora mai no tātou.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. In front of us we have our closing karakia, and then we'll stand to sing whakaria mai. Kapai. Me noi, kia taurunga mana ki tanga a te mea ngaro, ki runga ki tēnā o tātou, kia mahia te hua mahihihi, kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori, kia tūturu ka whakamaua, kia tīna, hui e taiki e. See